Keeping it real in 2025. Keeping it real in 2025 with poetry. With poetry. Hi, this is Dale Byron on Poetry. Thank you for joining me for this first podcast of the year. And I want to organize around that theme of keeping it real with poetry and what that might mean for us in the coming year. And I want to start by saying that I think many of us, certainly I'm asking myself this question, maybe you are too, and that is, how can we weave more beauty, understanding, and meaning into our lives in the face of such challenge and difficulty? How can we do that? Well, my stance, and I want to bring this out this year, I want to talk about what it would mean, what it could mean, and the benefits of building each of our own poetry practice. I don't mean it as some rarefied thing or some, thing in a hothouse literature context. I'm talking about poetry with sharp elbows. I'm talking about poetry for our regular daily lives. And we're going to talk about all the different capacities that poetry has to help us in our daily lives. We're going to talk about that. But first, what I want to do is kick us off with a poem called Pledge for the Coming Year, which is sort of in this spirit of keeping it real with poetry. And that question that I started us off with about more beauty, more understanding of the world, and more meaning, and in very difficult and challenging times. So, Pledge for the Coming Year, it goes like this. I hereby pledge to hone my superpower of strategic confusion, served up with a generous portion of humility, a passionate dose of curiosity, plus a redeeming dash of forgiveness for my own and others' mishaps. I wanted to start with those first few lines, or that's the way it came to me, because I believe that this is the time for humility, and humility means we must start out allowing ourselves to not know, to even be confused. I call it strategic confusion. Because if we are going to really deal with the complexity of this world, if we are going to step into it in a skillful way, I think we're all going to need this superpower of strategic confusion, at least as a starting point. So I hereby pledge to hone my superpower of strategic confusion, served up with a generous portion of humility, a passionate dose of curiosity, plus a redeeming dash of forgiveness for my own and others' mishaps. I'll honor the beauty of cracks. I'll honor the beauty of cracks, having patience for the stumblers, including me. As I am able, I will trade fear for equanimity when tethered to uncertainty and doubt. I'll be as baffled as required, lean fully into the silence. I promise to eat when I eat, talk when I talk, do only one thing at a time. As much as possible, I pledge to be a better animal, to love this earth, connect head and heart before I start doing. I pledge to read, write, and speak more poems out loud, to take myself in the world more sincere than serious. I pledge to play more songs, write a few when I can. I pledge to all corporate media. That I am done with you until you reform, which is likely never. I'm done with your coin-operated ways, your billionaire-backed habits, throwing us off the trail with paid-for plots and hot-take fears. So please, won't you excuse my absence from your profits and ratings as I try to see, hear, feel what's really there. Smell the soil, tail held high, get about my own sacred sniffing. Well, that poem came to me because I wanted, what came through were some interesting images, but also what came through to me was this theme of keeping it real with poetry, speaking, allowing ourselves to cohere around ideas that may be sort of rumbling inside of us, but in this process of writing poetry or in reading other people's poetry that speaks to us in a special way. Again, how are we going to help create more understanding, more beauty, more meaning for ourselves in this world in the face of intense difficulty? And I think, again, poetry has it has a part to play. And building your own personal practice, which we're going to talk about. We're going to unfold each week this year. We're going to use more stories. We're going to have more surprises, more stories about the poets and the creation of their poems, more poetic mentors. We're going to talk about poems. You know, when I think about your own poetic practice, I think about poems to help us remember what we need to remember. Poems to help us feel more deep gratitude for our lives, for our loved ones, for the earth. Poems to help us grow, to help us step into new ideas and new feelings, to grow as individuals, emotionally, intellectually. Poems of inspiration, of course, that's part of any personal poetry practice. Sometimes we're going to need to rebalance ourselves. We're going to, each one of us sort of has an inner poet and an inner plumber, practical and, for the heart and the mind. So we're going to need to rebalance ourselves. We're going to need to deal with loss. We're going to need to heal and deal with grieving in that category. And also, we're going to need to have ways of understanding the world, understanding how we're feeling, understanding how things come together in a way so that we can actually begin to hold them in a skillful way. We're going to do all of that in this coming year. And this last line, I wish for all of us, I say, so please excuse my absence from your profits and ratings as I try to see, hear, feel what's really there, smell the soil, tail held high, get about my own sacred sniffing. I don't know about you, but I've always loved that sort of metaphorical hound dog on the trail. And what I'm saying is that I think part of our keeping it real with poetry, part of our keeping it real is to have our own experiences, is not to take on these beliefs or these ideas that others provide us unless we have explored them for ourselves. And poetry can help us explore our heart, our mind, and our bodies. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for this coming year when we're going to dig into building each of our personal poetry practice in very practical and I hope you'll find valuable ways. So thank you again for listening. Take good care of yourself. And like I always say, if you can, take care of someone else too. All right. Bye-bye.